afternoon, everyone, and happy week 5 of the college football season. Welcome to Wiltfong Whiparound. I'm Grace Remington with our recruiting expert, Steve Wiltfong. And if you're watching this show, you already know 24/7 Sports is your home for commitments, and we have another big one tonight. Four-star wide receiver Tyler Williams announcing his college decision live tonight at 7:30 Eastern, only on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. Now, Steve, Georgia has long been considered the front runner for Williams. What can we expect tonight?
Yeah, Georgia has the nation's #3 recruiting class going into tonight's decision, and I've long liked Georgia in this recruitment. They've been the program to beat for Tyler. They've been the program to beat for Tyler since June, and they've pursued him as one of the top targets on the board, regardless of position. Brian McClendon has done a great job here. Off-field recruiting ace David Cooper has been in the mix of this recruitment, and Miami made a push here at the end, but there was never any intel that indicated to me that anybody was in pole position other than Georgia going into this decision. And this is a key target for them at a position where they've kind of struggled to land elite playmakers. You know, they have some guys in the fold right now that they like a lot. I think that they think Yazid Haynes can be special for them. He has a lot of upside. But Raymond Contrell's a kind of a possession type receiver, big body, thick guy that can move the chains and be dangerous in that regard. But you know, Tyler Williams is a guy that if they can land him, he would be a major recruiting win for them in a class that's certainly one of the best in the country.
Yeah, and Georgia looking to haul in a couple more recruits. 4-star defensive lineman Marquise Deal and 4-star tight end Deuce Robinson were between the hedges last weekend for the Dogs' win against Kent State. What can you tell us about their visits?
Yeah, so with Deuce Robinson, I think that visit, talking to some sources that spent time with him, and you can read Blair Angulo's update on Dogs 247 and the 24/7 Sports Network, that it couldn't have gone any better. And you talk about the way Georgia's developing the tight end position. That's certainly pivotal because this is a young man that wants to play both professional football and professional baseball at the same time. We're not talking about just doing it on the college level together, but he has aspirations of doing what Deion Sanders did and what Bo Jackson did. And he's pretty much already there as a baseball player to have a chance to be a pro. He's got a good chance to hear his name called in the major league draft is what college sources are saying. So for him, to be developed as a tight end is very important to him, and he sees that at Georgia. And I think that, you know, when I look at the top contenders for him, you have Georgia and you have USC, and he's been to USC and familiar with Lincoln Riley's offense, and being a playmaker within that scheme is certainly exciting. But Georgia in their particular precision with tight ends, I think, is also exciting. And so this was a needle-moving visit for Georgia with Deuce Robinson, and we'll see if they can add him to the class. And tight ends maybe the biggest need for Georgia, because they could lose 2 to 3 of those tight ends here after the season, and they scheme a lot around the tight end and utilize multiple tight ends. So they have 2 in the fold. Would love to add Deuce to that here, and then have that competitive room in that environment, in that room for years to come. And then with Marcus Deal, the village of Georgia really resonated with him and his family. Just getting to spend the personal time with Kirby Smart again and Trey Scott, who they spent time with in the summer, and then all the off-field guys that make an impact on the program as well. Just the amount of people that impact the football players at Georgia, really resonated with Marcus Deal and his family. They're battling Arkansas, TCU, Texas, USC, some of the other contenders for him. But 2 visits to Georgia have been 2 tremendous trips for one of the best 2A linemen in the country. Georgia recruiting him as a defensive tackle.
Hey, if Deuce Robinson can be the next Brock Bowers, I imagine Saturday was quite the sell. All right, another big name to keep an eye on, 5-star D lineman David Hicks. And Steve, you have some new information on him, but he announced a final 7 of Alabama, Miami, Michigan State, Oklahoma, Oregon, Texas, and Texas A&M. Steve, you gave a crystal ball prediction about a month ago in August that he's looking at the Sooners, but is he still trending in that direction?
Yeah, but Texas A&M not going away here down the stretch. David Hicks has zoomed with the Aggies the last two nights. His longest standing relationship is with Elijah Robinson, Nick Williams, and those guys in College Station. And I think that as the decision date is upon him, we're less than 24 hours or roughly 24 hours away from when he announces his college decision. I think that A&M is, it's, am I making the right decision? Am I going with the right place? Because he really likes Texas A&M. I think, Oklahoma is the one to beat down the stretch here. I think the Soul program that Coach Venables has implemented, that family environment at Oklahoma, seeing how the players have responded to the new staff with his trips to Norman, and just the way that he's connected with Coach Bates and Coach Venables and those guys has really put Oklahoma in the driver's seat down the stretch. But A&M has led for a lot of this recruitment, and now we're coming to the finish line here in a couple late Zooms, 2 visits to A&M for games this fall already, including the win over Miami. And these final conversations, I think, have made things interesting. And, again, the picks on Oklahoma, but A&M not going away here, Grace, down the stretch.
Okay, so if the Sooners land Hicks, this could be the best defensive lineman haul in the country. And I have to imagine if these guys are anything competitive, which they probably are, they're going to have a blast playing for Brent Venables and all his exotic looks. So Oklahoma has a stout line. We know this, but it's full of upperclassmen. So, Steve, how soon can we expect to see some of these recruits on the field in 2023?
Yeah, and there's good players in that room, but I wouldn't say there's a lot of surefire NFL guys in that room, maybe a couple of them. So you look at this recruiting class and you're talking about a program that's trying to win a national championship. You need to be elite up front on defense. First, you need to be elite at quarterback, and they have Jackson Arnold committed. He's arguably the top quarterback in the country. So that question has already been answered, in my opinion, as far as recruiting goes at that position. So now you're trying to revamp this defense and tool it in a way where you can win 13 or 14 games. And David Hicks is a versatile defensive lineman that can play across the front. He's strong, he's powerful, he's explosive, and he can do multiple things. And we've seen what Brent Venables can do over the course of his career with special defensive linemen. He's built elite defenses at Clemson, and now he's trying to do it at Oklahoma. And guys like David Hicks and PJ Adebawore, Colton Vasek out of Austin Westlake. He's got 6 sacks in 4 games this season. Those are game-changing type recruiting wins if they can add David Hicks to PJ Adebawore and Colton Vasek and Derek LeBlanc and company. I think Almost Shigo is one of the top linebackers in the land. There's a lot of talented defensive backs in this class, headlined by Jacoby Johnson and Makari Vickers. And so, but David DJ Hicks is the guy that takes the class from here to here on the defensive side of the ball and gives you another championship level piece, the number 1 defensive line recruit in the country. That would be massive. And then for A&M, if they're able to land him, they just went out and signed the best recruiting class in 24/7 sports history last year. And the strength of it was the defensive line. And David DJ Hicks is a guy that can come in behind, the Walter Nolans and Shamar Stewarts of the world and push that room and be of that caliber to keep it rolling up front in College Station.
Okay, so wherever Hicks goes, Oklahoma beefing it up for its move to the SEC. And speaking of the SEC, Neyland Stadium, man, it's one of the best atmospheres in college football, and it was rocking last Saturday with the rival Gators in town. Tennessee wide receiver Brew McCoy is only in his first season with the Vols after transferring over from USC, but he already knows there's nothing like Rocky Top.
No, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into in the best way ever. Couldn't picture it, couldn't fathom it. The sound, the crowd, everything. It's an unbelievable experience. It's surreal. I made the best decision I've made coming here.
Best decision going there. Wow, that is quite the endorsement. Now, Steve, I don't know about you. I've been to Neyland once. It was in 2016, the last time the Gators lost to Tennessee, but it is absolutely electric there, and you do not want to mess with those fans if they're not on your side. But there were some 2023 and 2024 recruits soaking in the atmosphere there. So let me ask you, when the fans show out like they did and that energy is physically palpable, how does it help in recruiting?
Well, electric was one of the words used by recruits that was there. Indescribable was another word. Amazing, relentless. were some of the ways insane, were some of the ways that these blue chip recruits describe Neyland Stadium. And a lot of these guys have attended big games in college football over the last couple seasons, but it just was different inside Neyland for that win over Florida. And Tennessee football fans are hungry for a successful football team, one that's has them back in the conversation to win the SEC, because it's been a long time since they've even been a legit contender in the SEC East. And here you are, you're undefeated through September. You have the nation's number 9 recruiting class in 2023. In an atmosphere like that, that's what these kids want to play in. They want to play in front of fan bases like that are that passionate and that raucous, but they also want to play for a program that's moving in the right direction, and they want to help do that. And we talked about it in the last segment with Oklahoma having their quarterback in the fold in Jackson Arnold. You're not going to go anywhere you want as a program without having the right guy under center. And Tennessee has arguably the best quarterback in the country committed to, and Nico Iamaleava. He was back over the weekend, loved his experience. He's kind of the Pied Piper of the class, helping recruit his peers, and that atmosphere certainly helped Nico, Coach Heupel and company recruit some of the big names that were on campus.
Hey, all those descriptors, those recruits were saying that's exactly what you want to hear if you're on that coaching staff. All right, let's check in on edge rusher Keon Keely. We've been following him. He's still touring college stadiums around the country after decommitting from Notre Dame over the summer. He just visited Ohio State, has a visit to Alabama coming up next weekend. Steve, can you give us an update on his timeline?
Yeah, talking to his mom after the Ohio State visit, she said after the Alabama visit that they're very much looking forward to. They'll probably take a couple weeks to think things over. Now, does that mean that'll be a decision in a couple weeks, or does that mean they may have to take some more visits? I don't know, but he's been to Ohio State twice in September. And, talking to some people that spent time with him at Ohio State, they think that Keon Keely is going to go to Ohio State, and that he's a great fit, that he's vibing well with the recruits. Certainly they have great respect and love for Larry Johnson and Ryan Day and the culture that he's built. So Ohio State is very much a player for Keon Keely, obviously following 2 visits for 2 night games inside the shoe. That's one of the rare atmospheres that can compete with Neyland Stadium. There's only a handful of elite atmospheres, and Ohio State's one of them. And Keon Keely's been there twice this year, but he's going to go to Alabama next weekend. He's been there several times, and certainly their track record of player development and the way they want to use him on the edge there is exciting as well. Alabama's a 24/7 Sports crystal ball favorite. They look like the one to beat when he decommitted from Notre Dame, but Ohio State has certainly given them a lot to think about. Now it's time to go back to Alabama and revisit with them and see them in person, because certainly he's talking to them, keeping in touch with them as well. And we'll see how that visit goes. Florida's the other school in the mix, but I think, if you've been following Whiparound, we've liked Alabama and Ohio State's position a lot better. And we'll see what happens with this upcoming Alabama visit.
Yeah, big weekends ahead for Alabama. And the Tide just hosted a couple of 4-star defensive players, James Smith and Quay Rusaw, who are teammates at Carver High School in nearby Montgomery, Alabama. And Steve, looking at their profiles, I noticed these guys are warm on the same 6 schools. So what's the deal here? Are they a package deal?
They are. They're buds. They make these trips together. And they plan on playing their college football together. And I think Alabama's the one to beat for each of these 24/7 Sports composite 5-star recruits. Quay Rusaw is the edge rusher type. Game kind of reminds me of Nolan Smith a little bit at Georgia there. But I like where Alabama stands with both of these guys, particularly after another strong visit to Tuscaloosa. We'll see if Florida can change that narrative. James Smith has mentioned Ohio State a lot of his process, so maybe the Buckeyes can make a maneuver there. They've taken official visit to Georgia, but Alabama and then Auburn. They've been to Auburn for games this year. Maybe they're back at Auburn again this weekend. There was talk about that last weekend, so we'll see. But I like where Alabama stands with each of them. Alabama is the number 1 recruiting class in the country. If they can add Keon Keely and James Smith and Quay Rusaw to what's already in the fold, as much as we would love that Oklahoma class with David DJ Hicks involved, if they're able to land him, I think you'd still have to give the tip of the cap to Alabama for the number 1 defensive line haul in the country. Then you also have Ohio State, Keon Keely, Mateo Uiagalelei, and Damon Wilson. Damon Wilson's also looking at Alabama and Georgia, but Ohio State a factor for all three of those elite defensive linemen down the stretch too. So these programs that are rich year in and year out at the front, at the point of attack, looking to get a little richer here as this 2023 cycle comes to an end.
Absolutely. Well, that'll do it for us on this episode of Wiltfong Whiparound. Please like and comment on this video and subscribe to the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel if you want recruiting scoops like this that you can't get anywhere else. Thanks to our producers, Chris, Sonley, and Jason, and thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.